Okay. Good afternoon here. Valerie Milano, the senior editor of the Hollywood Times. I'm so happy to have our guest here today. I'm going to have him introduce himself. Thanks so much again for joining us.
Thanks for having me. My name is Simon Stockdale. I'm a filmmaker from Philadelphia.
Excellent, Simon. Thanks again so much. Um, so do evil thoughts make an evil man? It raises a disturbing moral question
Mm,
without giving the audience an easy answer. What
sure.
first inspired you to explore this idea?
Yeah, it's funny. I get asked that a lot when I show people this, and I do want to make it clear this is not autobiographical. Some of my earlier work was. So no, this film actually the question is very interesting to me. I used to be a delivery driver back in the day, and so you're on the road a lot and you're dealing with a lot of road rage. And when you have road rage, you think some pretty awful things. You're thinking awful things about people you don't even know, but they are real people and they live important lives. And so I would often feel pretty horrible about myself afterward, thinking, wow, I thought some terrible things. So I had to ask myself, does having those thoughts make you a bad person, or do you have to act on those thoughts in order for you to be a bad person? And if that's true that you're not a bad person for having those bad thoughts, how far can those thoughts go before that doesn't become true anymore?
Okay, that's fair. I know you began your filmmaking career after surviving a near fatal collision in
Mm.
2021. Did that experience at all affect the urgency or darkness or philosophical nature of this film?
Sure. Indirectly, I think it affects all of my films. I think that when I decided to get into filmmaking, which you're right, it happened after I was hit by a drunk driver. I was stopped at a red light. He simply just didn't try to stop and rear-ended me. He hit me, he pinned me to the car in front of me. The driver of that vehicle and I both ended up having to go to the hospital. And the truth of it is, when I decided in that moment to get into filmmaking, I decided that it was because I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell stories that mattered, that created not only entertainment, but critical thought, critical thinking. And so I try to make films, I try to write scripts, tell stories that sometimes are challenging, but are worth, in my mind, thinking about.
Yeah. Wow. Sorry to hear about the accident, but glad you're all right.
Mm,
So, yeah, the film just begins with a horrifying deathbed confession.
mm.
How did you decide exactly how much information to reveal to the nurse and to the audience?
I think it was interesting having the conversation play out the way it did. I think was kind of natural. It was a progression while working with the actors. I am the writer, but I do like to work with actors to help create these characters and create dialogue that they will be using. And I think it was a progression of where would this conversation naturally go, while still maintaining that I believe firmly as the filmmaker that I wanted the conversation to continue after the film was over. And so therefore I couldn't have a conclusion within the film. I wanted people to keep talking. So reveal a certain amount, give a few arguments to multiple sides of the argument, and then allow whoever's watching to continue it from there.
Thank you for that, Simon. I really liked the tension between Hoyt Richards and April Yanko. What did each actor bring to the roles that surprised you, if anything?
Mm. I don't know if they surprised me because I knew them ahead of time, and they're both phenomenal actors and producers, and in some cases writers as well. April's directed as well, but they didn't surprise me because I had the world of expectations for both of them, but they were both fantastic. They both produced as well for this, and they they're the type of filmmaker, they're the type of collaborators you need to work with because they refuse to let a project be worse than what they believe it can be. And so they kind of kicked my butt a little bit, making sure that the script was as good as it could be. And we spent, nights together hashing it out. And I mean, even up to the day of filming, we wanted to make sure we could get it as good as we believed it deserved to be. So I don't want to say I was surprised because I really knew that they could be amazing, and I thought that they were amazing. It was my first time being able to work with both of them, but I had been admirers of theirs for a while. I'd met them through the film festival circuit, and we were each fans of each other's work, and from that, we're able to decide we wanted to get something together.
Sounds like a great collaboration, the way it should be.
Mm,
The nurse is suddenly forced to carry the weight of another person's secret. What do
mm.
you think her responsibility is after hearing that confession?
Oh gosh, what do I personally think? I I don't know that a filmmaker is supposed to tell his opinions there. It's like asking a magician his trick. I
A
think
good one,
I
yeah.
I don't know. For me, I think I said everything I want to say there because I don't know. What do you think?
I know. Well, we'll let all the viewers make
Hmm.
that decision, right? Um,
Absolutely.
the film also asks whether thoughts alone can make someone evil.
Hmm.
Did making the film change your own answer to that question?
I think at times, but I also think my own answer changes. I feel like day to day. Because I feel so firmly in one direction or the other, depending on context. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe context is the answer. But for me, I felt like, and this is a testament once again to the performances and the delivery of the actors, the cast I had. But I edited my own film as well. I edit all my own films. And as you're sitting there listening to them say their lines back and forth, you're kind of agreeing with whoever's talking. And so I think throughout the process, both writing, filming, editing, and now here on the festival circuit, watching it an ungodly amount of times, you do it depends on the context of how you watch it. So has it changed my opinion? I don't know, because I think my opinion's always been kind of fluid.
Got it. You previously worked as a film critic, as I'm doing
Hmm.
here. How has analyzing other filmmakers' work influenced the way you direct and structure your own stories, or has it?
I'm sure it has. That's probably a great question for me to ask myself. I think probably it stems long before I was a film critic. It's all the way back to honestly how I grew up. I'm the youngest of six. I'm in a large family, and the thing that kind of bonded our family together because it's hard, there's a wide age range there. My oldest brother is 10 years older than me. And so it's hard to find something for a 16-year-old and a 6-year-old to do that they'll both have fun doing. And so that ended up for my family being watching movies mostly. And so sometimes those movies aren't necessarily as entertaining for the 16-year-old. So I was uh, privileged, I guess you could say, to have older siblings all kind of having a running commentary, whether it was funny or critical or whatever, of what we were watching, and gave me a very critical eye of films in general. So that's been since I was a little kid, where the way I watch movies is sure appreciating the art, but also just understanding and trying to look for what really does make it work, what really is making the clock tick. And, I mean, for me, frankly, I had more fun growing up watching the behind the scenes of movies than the movies themselves sometimes. So I think it's all interconnected. I think a lot of filmmaking is, of course, very mathematical, very clinical, but also so much of it is just feel. So I think all of it's wrapped together. I don't know if I answered your question, but what I'll say is I think it has affected it. I think that's just the way that I've always watched movies though.
Do you have a particular filmmaker that
Mm.
maybe one of your favorites?
Ah, just one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really look up to Orson Welles. I am a big fan of a more contemporary person. Nolan's been one of my favorites. Going back in time again, Chaplin, I think. I just really I gravitate more toward the early era of filmmakers because more often than now you had the filmmakers that were auteurs that would do everything themselves. You know, somebody like Chaplin, he would write, he would direct, he would act, he would create his own score and record it, he would edit his films himself. He would do literally everything. And I think, indie filmmakers that have to do a lot, wear a bunch of hats, it's really inspiring to watch filmmakers like that. And there's some nowadays, somebody like Robert Rodriguez who does that, but I don't know. I really admire the pioneers of the early film era.
Very good. Your company, Spare Room Films, focuses on
Mm.
thought-provoking and unusual stories. What do you hope audiences will debate after seeing this particular film?
Yeah, I mean it's right there in the title. It's do evil thoughts make an evil man? I want the people that watch this to ask themselves that question. And I also what I always hope is that when people watch my films, they bring in an open mind where they can ask themselves questions because more often than not, people have conclusions before they've even seen the film, which is unfortunate. So I do hope that people will be willing to have real open and honest conversations and ask themselves, even if they're not going to have a debate with somebody that's watched it with them or that they know, maybe have a debate with themselves and ask themselves that question that they've never really thought about that way before.
The film has a very intimate setup, but the
Mm.
questions it raises are enormous, as we know, is what we're talking about. What were the challenges of creating that level of suspense within a contained story?
Mm. Well, I think, man, making a thriller. Thrillers in general, it's about that rise in tension and the release of tension. And this is a short film, so you don't have to do that as much, but it is a little bit on the mid to long range of that short film. It's over 12 minutes. And so you can't just have a single thread of suspense the whole time. You do have to let out a little bit of air every once in a while. So I think the biggest the biggest challenge of that is to know how taut you can pull that line without it breaking, without losing the audience. And that's with any, I think that's with any genre. I mean, you could say the same thing about comedy. It's a high wire act. How tight can you pull that before it breaks? So I think for me, this was actually my first ever short film. Before this, I had made only features, and so that was probably the biggest challenge for me was knowing how to lay out that pacing and make sure that it is telling its full story, but not taking too long and then not losing anything by trying to trim it down. So that's why we ended up with the 12 minutes. We wanted to get it a little bit shorter, but we just couldn't.
Yeah, that's got to be hard.
Mm.
So, what does it mean to you to bring the film to the River Valley Film Festival? And what are you hoping to hear from the audiences? I know you've already had some screenings. What do you hope to hear from these audiences after the screening?
Well, I'm very excited, by the way. So to get back to this festival is great. I was there last year with one of my previous films and just a great, reception there. It was great, to meet everybody there, the judges. I spent some time with them. I spent time with the director, Corey, and just a great atmosphere, a really cool spot, a really cool town, good venue. I'm excited to be back because anytime you have an opportunity to be back to the same festival more than once, it's just it's a wonderful experience because you get to build rapport, you get to build, relationships. And so, first and foremost, I'm excited to be back. What do I hope for? I hope for, like I said, to have that conversation. I hope I can hear those reactions, and so far so good with screenings where I've had people be very vocal, in their reactions. And so you can gauge even before the film's over how people felt about it. Because that's always the worst, being a filmmaker, watching your film with other people and nobody's saying anything. So you don't know, do they like it? Do they hate it? What's happening? So I hope they let me know early on how they're feeling about it. And ultimately, I hope it just leads to productive conversations where people are able to be open and honest and maybe, like I said, think some things that they hadn't thought before.
Lovely. Unfortunately, I won't be there, but please
Mm,
tell Corey hello. I hope to meet him. I hope I can be there one day. We are media partners for the film festival, so I feel very happy about that. And finally, Simon, what is
mm.
next for you in Spare Room Films?
Yeah, so we're in pre-production on a few different films. We're trying to get them the details ironed out, which one we're gonna go with next. But we have a few different projects that I'm very excited for. I don't want to give too much information away, but we're going back into the well of short films. I've got one idea that we're calling Dating God, and I've got another one called Pushing Daisy. Both a little bit allegorical and both thought-provoking, so we're continuing down that trend, and hopefully you'll hear more information about both of those pretty soon.
Good. Please keep us posted. We're the Hollywood Times dot today, HollywoodTimes.net. Our YouTube channel's the Hollywood Times Official. It's been a pleasure meeting you virtually. Keep up the great creative work that you do.
Thank
And
you.
thank you again for your time, Simon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great to meet you too.
Wonderful. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.